I'm Maya, and this is my so-called life. I live in New York City as a 20-something. I want to find and make the best food, watch all the recommended movies and TV shows, and see tons of cities in this country. Follow me on Instagram and subscribe to join in on the fun. Hi, welcome to Should I Visit Blank City, where I tell you about my experience mostly solo traveling to a new city in my pursuit of 30 cities before 30. In this episode, we are obviously talking about San Diego, a city that I had never been to before, even though I grew up in the Bay Area in California. And I really wanted to just cross it off my list and see if it really felt different than the one time that I've been to LA and see whether or not I liked it in comparison to some other coastal cities. I'm not really the type of person to film myself like walking around or talking to a camera, especially when I'm on vacation and I just want to relax. So it's mostly going to be clips of me heading to places or the things that I was eating and the environment. If this feels really choppy, then we'll play around with format. I might do some voiceovers for future episodes, so we'll see what kind of works. After the vlog clips, we'll come back around and discuss my travel details, how I thought and felt about things, and overall whether I would recommend going to San Diego. Without further ado, let's head into my days there. Welcome back to my apartment in New York City for some hindsight thoughts. Let's start off by recapping some travel details. I was there for 3 full days and then 1 half day before I headed to the airport. I felt like this was a good amount of time for the things that I wanted to do, but didn't feel too rushed. There were definitely things that I didn't cross off my list, but I really wanted these vacation days to feel relaxing and to leave the trip without any regret. As for accommodations, I didn't take any clips of my hotel. I will make sure to do so in the future. It wasn't the nicest hotel. Like, it definitely felt a little high school motel, sports team tournament trip type of vibe. But the location of it was excellent. I stayed right in kind of the heart of Little Italy, and I found this location to be incredibly walkable for a lot of the things that I wanted to cover. The hotel room itself was decently clean. It didn't feel super luxurious, and I definitely heard people in the rooms next to me, as well as there was a walkway outside the door. I could hear every single word of people like going out at night. So if you really want sort of a private, no sounds heard from other places, this isn't probably the right spot for you. Regarding the time of year that I went the weekend before Christmas, which was a very strange time because, especially with work from home this year, it felt like there were a lot of people who had maybe left San Diego to go home to their families. There were not a lot of people roaming around, so it definitely felt pretty empty. How to get around San Diego. So it very much felt like a driving city, which is very different from New York City, where I pretty much walk or take the subway everywhere. I didn't have a car in San Diego, and I also didn't bother to figure out public transportation. Because I didn't have sort of a strict agenda, I walked everywhere, and everywhere that I went was anywhere from 15 to maybe 40 minutes walk away, and I found that to be pretty decent. There were definitely some restaurants and also beach spots that I did have flagged before I went to San Diego, and could have taken a very quick Uber or figured out public transportation, but didn't end up doing so for the sake of time. On to the fun stuff. So for food, when it comes to these travel locations, I'm kind of gonna say generally good or bad. Like, was it hard to find good food? And the answer in San Diego is no. I would say that almost everything that I ate was delicious and would recommend going. So I'll list them below and definitely recommend adding these spots to your itinerary. Because everything was so good, I'm just gonna call out my favorites. Definitely Devil's Dozen Donut Shop. You can see I went there, I think, every morning except for my first day because it was just that good. And they have different specials daily, and they open, I think, at 7 a.m. and close when they sell out. So there were definitely certain days where I was picking from the bottom of the barrel, but everything was so good and I just couldn't stop going. And then tacos, I did go to, I'm gonna mispronounce this, Mike Heiss's twice because it was a very easy and beautiful scenic walk. Those tacos were excellent, but I actually think that the taco shop tacos were a little bit better. And those, I even waited 20 minutes to get to the waterfront to eat. Highly, highly recommend. Overall, if you're going to San Diego, you have to eat all the fish tacos that you can possibly eat if you eat fish, because even up in Northern California, I can't say that the fish tacos are quite as good. Safety and COVID, we obviously have to discuss. I would say that San Diego did feel pretty safe. That said, people did not seem that intense about masking or social distancing. Maybe it's because it's a driving city and they're not kind of packed into public transportation in the same way that we are in New York City. Pedestrians were not that dense either, so maybe that's an element to it. On the safety front though, because oftentimes I was the only person walking around on streets, and I did notice that there were quite a few homeless people in San Diego. I mean, New York City is also a city with a tremendous issue with homelessness, so it's kind of common practice, I guess, walking around to be careful and just make sure you know exactly where you're walking. There were times where I would cross the street isolate or feel a little bit like if something were to happen to me that nobody around would know. Just something to keep in mind if you're going to San Diego without a car. Another element that I always want to bring up during these chats is the touristy level, and I'm going to give cities a rating out of 5 just to make it simple. San Diego, I think, gets a 2 out of 5. Even though I stayed in Little Italy and also went to Seaport Village, both felt like they could be huge tourist traps. A lot of the time, I just felt like I was surrounded by families or friends who were going out to dinner or just spending quality time together. It didn't feel like vendors or anything were really pandering to people from out of town in particular. And lastly, would I recommend San Diego and would I go back? And the answer is yes. I really enjoyed my time there. It felt extremely relaxing, not at all the hustle and bustle of New York City. All of the food was really good, and there were plenty of things that I would love to go back and do, but without the pressures of an overwhelming city where you have like a strict itinerary and you want to accomplish 50 things in one day. Like, that just was not the San Diego vibe. I don't think that I could live there, and I would say I don't regret not going to all of the places, whereas I've definitely been to cities where I leave and I'm like, oh no, I really wish that I could have done, XYZ, and really just had no time. In a very succinct conclusion, San Diego was chill, it was beautiful, and had great fish tacos. If you'd like to see more of these cities, I'm actually headed to Nashville later this month, so please subscribe and stick around. If there's any factor that I missed that would really contribute to whether or not you would want to visit a city, leave a comment. I would love to know, and I'll be sure to incorporate it into future videos. That's all for now. Thanks for traveling with me. I'll see you soon. Bye.